Good morning, Discovery class. I have on my side Alvin Effa. And I brought Alvin today because he represents all of us at our age in our congregation. He's on the search committee. And we're now in the throes of trying to find ourselves an interim pastor and a senior pastor. His job with his committee is going to be to do that. If you have been to a church or you have seen a pastor that really inspired you and you thought, you know what? I wonder if he would one day consider coming to pastor our church at Brentview. If you have that thought, would you kindly let Alvin know? Because Alvin would be the one to take it to committee and do that search for you. And we want you to have that feeling that you could do that. Now I'm going to step aside. Alvin, he's going to be my teacher today. And he's a great teacher because he is a teacher by profession. For years and years, he worked in the Calgary school system. And he was the principal of some of the largest high schools that we have in our city. And from that point of view, he is also a great Christian, and he's done some wonderful research, Old Testament, New Testament. And today you're going to be a surprise visitor to the wonderful book of Job. So I'm going to step aside. Alvin's going to be your teacher, and you pour yourself another coffee, sit back in that nice little chair of yours that's comfortable, and here we go. Alvin, God bless you.
Thanks.
All the best.
Thank you, Pastor Ron. As Pastor Ron said, my topic today is taken from the book of Job. You're probably wondering, why Job? Well, hopefully I can answer that question in a positive way. For me, the book of Job is a book filled with wisdom, intrigue, humor, and about a man whose faith in God was severely tested. Throughout its pages are profound truths revealed by Job, who experienced terrible suffering. How do you fit into this picture? Can you identify with Job? Hopefully, I can stimulate you to read and reread and study this book, and to never lose hope, and to always trust in the Lord. Let me begin my talk by reading a number of verses from chapter 1 of the book of Job. A man named Job lived in the land of Uz. He was an honest and innocent man. He honored God and stayed away from evil. Job had 7 sons and 3 daughters. He owned 7,000 sheep, 3,000 camels, 500 teams of oxen, and 500 female donkeys. He also had a large number of servants. He was the greatest man among all the people of the East. One day, the angels came to show themselves before the Lord, and Satan was with them. The Lord said to Satan, "Where have you come from?" Satan answered the Lord, "I have been wandering around the earth, going back and forth, back and forth." Then the Lord said to Satan, "Have you noticed my servant Job? No one else on earth is like him. He is an honest and innocent man, honoring God and staying away from evil." But Satan answered the Lord, "Yes, Job honors God for a good reason. You have put a wall around him and his family and everything he owns. You have blessed the things he has done. His flocks and herds are so large they almost cover the land. But reach out your hand and destroy everything he has, and he will curse you to your face." There's a lot of theology in this book, and many different themes that permeate it. I want to zero in on just one of those many themes, namely the theme of attitude and how we deal with catastrophes that we encounter. 24 years ago, as Jody and I were getting ready to go to bed, the phone rang. I looked at the clock and it read 12:45 a.m. Usually we were in bed much earlier. I looked at Jody and said, "Do I answer it? Who phones at this hour unless it's a joke or some bad news?" I picked up the phone, and a voice on the other end introduced himself as a police sergeant from Banff. He asked, "Are you Alvin Effa?" "Yes," I responded. "Do you have a son named Julian?" "Yes." "Well, I'm sorry to inform you that he was in an accident, and he's in an ambulance on his way to the Foothills Hospital." No sooner had I hung up the phone and it rang again. "Hello? Are you Alvin Effa?" "Yes." "This is the Foothills Hospital calling to inform you that your son has been in a very serious accident. He's in the ICU and we have him on life support. If you want to see him while he is still alive, come now. We may not be able to keep him alive much longer." Words cannot adequately describe what my eyes met that night. A neurosurgeon took me aside and explained that in addition to broken bones from his toes to his head, he has suffered from a severe traumatic brain injury. He said, "We've examined his brain impulses and all indications show that he is brain dead. Mechanically, we can keep him alive for a while longer while you think about it." Knowing that his mother also would want to see him, I said, "Do all you can, and I'll make my decision in the morning." 6 weeks after the accident, an angel named Helen, disguised as a physiotherapist, came to see me. I'd been with Julian virtually every day since the accident, and so all the staff knew me. She says, "We're going to start physiotherapy on Julian next week, and I'd like you to help." I thought, are you crazy? He's still in a semi-comatose state. He can't talk, he can't walk, he's partially blind, he has trouble staying awake, he can't even sit up in bed, his left arm is still frozen to his chest, and his toes are pronated forward. Her response, "Not to worry. There will be 4 of us. Myself, you, and 2 interns. We'll work on him for an hour every day for 5 days a week." This therapist, named Helen, had an attitude. She simply did not understand the word failure. I still bless her for her efforts. Julian's recovery was not the Hollywood version of coming out of a coma where one day you wake up and everything is normal. Julian's basic recovery was a slow 4-year-plus process of healing and therapy and lots of prayer. It took over 2 years for him to be able to walk on his own. He still suffers from cognitive deficiencies, but currently he is a very happy, pleasant young man. While Julian was still at the Brain Institute in Ponoka, another patient gave him a picture, and I'd like to share that with you. The picture says, "Never give up." It's a picture of a crane with a frog in its beak, and the frog has got his feet around the crane's neck. Never give up. A second example of a person with an attitude is an old story of an incident that supposedly took place in the early 1930s. It was made popular by Stephen Covey in his 1989 book, The 7 Habits of Effective People. The U.S. denies the accuracy of this account, but the story lives on. The captain of a large battleship sees what appears like another ship coming straight to him. It's very foggy outside, and he sends this message. "This is Captain Jeremiah Smith. His voice cracked over the radio. "Please alter your course 10 degrees south. Over." To the captain's amazement, the foggy image did not move. Instead, he heard back on the radio, "Captain Smith, this is Private Thomas Johnson. Please alter your course 10 degrees north. Over." Appalled at the audacity of the message, the captain shouted back over the radio, "Private Johnson, this is Captain Smith, and I order you to immediately alter your course 10 degrees south. Over." A second time, the oncoming light did not budge. "With all due respect, Captain Smith," came the private's voice again, "I order you to alter your course immediately 10 degrees north. Over." Angered and frustrated that this impudent sailor would endanger the lives of his men and crew, the captain growled back over the radio, "Private Johnson, I can have you court-martialed. For the last time, I command you on the authority of the United States government to alter your course 10 degrees to the south. I am a battleship." The private's final transmission was chilling. "Captain Smith, sir, once again, with all due respect, I command you to alter your course 10 degrees to the north. I am a lighthouse." A third example of a person with an attitude in many ways summarizes Job's battle with his friends. I found this article while I was researching the topic. There was no name attached, so I can't give credits. The story reads as follows. Once there was an old man who lived in a tiny village. Although poor, he was envied by all, for he owned a beautiful white horse. Even the king coveted this treasure. A horse like this had never been seen before. Such was its splendor, its majesty, its strength. People offered fabulous prices for the steed, but the old man always refused. "This horse is not a horse to me," he would tell them. "It is a person." "How could you sell a person?" "He is a friend, not a possession." "How could you sell a friend?" The man was poor, and the temptation was great, but he never sold the horse. One morning he found that the horse was not in the stable. All the village came to see him. "You old fool," they scoffed. "We told you that someone would steal your horse. We warned you that you would be robbed. You are so poor. How could you ever hope to protect such a valuable animal? It would have been better to have sold him. You could have asked whatever price you wanted. Now the horse is gone, and you've been cursed with misfortune." The old man responded, "Don't speak too quickly. Say only that the horse is not in the stable. That is all we know. The rest is just judgment. If I've been cursed or not, how can you know? How can you judge?" The people contested. "Don't make us out to be fools. We may not be philosophers, but great philosophy is not needed. The simple fact, your horse is gone, that's a curse." The old man spoke again. "All I know is that the stable is empty and the horse is gone. The rest I don't know. Whether it is a curse or a blessing, I can't say. All we can see is a fragment. Who can say what will come next?" The people of the village laughed. They thought that the old man was mad. They had always thought he was a fool. If he wasn't, he would have sold a horse and lived off the money. But instead, he was a poor woodcutter, an old man still cutting firewood and dragging it out of the forest and selling it. He had lived hand to mouth in the misery of poverty. Now he had proven that he was indeed a fool. After 15 days, the horse returned. He hadn't been stolen. He had just run into the forest. Not only had he returned, but he brought with him a dozen wild horses. Once again, the village people gathered around the woodcutter and spoke. "Old man, you were right and we were wrong. What we thought was a curse was actually a blessing. Please forgive us." The old man responded, "Once again, you go too far. Say only that the horse is back. State only that a dozen horses returned with him. But don't judge. How do you know if this is a blessing or not? You see only a fragment. Unless you know the whole story, how can you judge? You read only one page of a book. Can you judge the whole book? You read only one word of a phrase. Can you understand the entire phrase? Life is vast, yet you judge all life with one page and one word? All you have is a fragment. Don't say this is a blessing. No one knows. I am content with what I know. I am not perturbed by what I don't know." "Maybe the old man is right," they said to one another. So they said little, but deep down they knew he was wrong. They knew it was a blessing. 12 wild horses had returned with one horse. With a little bit of work, the animals could be broken and trained and sold for much money. The old man had a son, an only son. The young man began to break the wild horses. After a few days, he fell from one of the horses and broke both legs. Once again, the villagers gathered around the old man and cast their judgments. "You were right," they said. You proved you were right. The dozen horses were not a blessing. They were a curse. Your only son has broken his legs, and now in your old age, you have no one to help you. Now you are poorer than ever." The old man spoke again. "You people are obsessed with judging. Don't go so far. Say only, my son broke his legs. Who knows if it is a blessing or a curse? No one knows. We only have a fragment. Life comes in fragments." Now it happened that a few weeks later, the country engaged in a war against the neighboring country. All the young men of the village were required to join the army. Only the son of the old man was excluded because he was injured. Once again, the people gathered around the old man, crying and screaming because their sons had been taken. There was little chance they would return. The enemy was strong, and the war would be a losing struggle. They would never see their sons again. "You were right, old man," they wept. "God knows you were right. This proves it. Your son's accident was a blessing. His legs may be broken, but at least he is with you. Our sons are gone forever." The old man spoke again. "You know, it's impossible to talk to you. You always draw conclusions. No one knows. Say only this: your sons had to go to war, and mine did not. No one knows if it's a blessing or a curse. No one is wise enough to know. Only God knows. Trust in him." In summary, the book of Job, which is considered by many as the oldest book in the Bible, is a story of one of the world's wealthiest, most prosperous old men whose faith in God was being tested. He lost everything he had, including his children, land, camels, oxen, donkeys, sheep, and money. Everything. When you give it some serious thought, what he lost, except for his children, it was only material stuff. No one takes anything with them when they die. When John D. Rockefeller died, who was one of the wealthiest men in history, his accountant was asked, "How much did John D. leave?" The accountant replied, "All of it." Even though Job displayed an unyielding faith in God's care, he still asked the age-old question, "Why me, God? How could you do these things to me?" When Job learns about the death of his children, he has this deep emotional outburst. Although not sinning by cursing God, Job does not hesitate to curse the day he was born. Why? Why didn't I perish at birth? Job is never given the answer. Worse, he was never even made aware of the discussion between God and Satan. But even though Job did not know why these things were happening to him, he did know enough about God to trust him. What Job encountered is not uncommon to mankind today. We still ask the same question. If God is so loving and all-powerful, why does he let the righteous suffer? There is this story about a missionary who had been involved in very effective Christian work in Latin America. She was a woman full of love for the Lord. On returning home to live in the United States, her future looked very promising. Marrying a graduate of a Bible school, a man she had known for many years, she was set to return to the mission field with him. But she had not been married to him for more than a couple of hours before she began to suspect that she had married a monster. It began with the most malicious form of psychological terror and later developed into physical brutality. As the years passed, the abuse worsened, and she turned to alcohol. She hated herself, she hated her husband, and she hated God. Why me, Lord? She knew she was not perfect, but she had been such a devoted Christian. Joseph Parker was the minister of the City Temple Church in London from 1874 until his death in 1902. He said that up to the age of 69, he never had a religious doubt. But then his wife died, and his faith all but collapsed. He wrote, "In that dark hour, I almost became an atheist." Our cry today is still the same. Just where is God when my world is falling apart? Why doesn't God say something? Why doesn't he do something? God's silent answer to Job was simple. God just wanted Job to quit focusing on the unimportant questions of life and to live in a joyful state of praise and to trust in God. Finally, in chapter 42, Job ultimately responds with praise and is rewarded with twice as many possessions as he had before. I encourage you to read and reread this book. There is so much to learn from it. It is often referred to as a sad, depressing book. I disagree. It actually has a lot of humor in it and covers many important aspects of life. I'd like to conclude with some light-hearted examples. When Job's friends went on and on and on, insisting that he must have done something wrong, otherwise God would not be punishing him, he replies, "You smear me with lies. You are worthless physicians, all of you. If only you would be silent." Translated, just shut up. Go away. Leave me alone. I did nothing wrong. Then he does an expose on food. Chapter 6. A wild donkey does not bray when it has grass to eat. An ox is quiet when it has feed. Tasteless food is not eaten without salt, and there is no flavor in the white of an egg. I refuse to touch it. Such food makes me sick. Every time I read that, I chuckle. I have a friend who as a child had to eat a lot of eggs. To this day, she refuses to eat eggs. But my favorite humor story is found in chapter 41, where he describes a person trying to catch a leviathan on a fish hook, or to try to tie its tongue down with a rope. He says, "If you put a hand on it, you will never forget the battle, and you will never do it again." He covers 34 verses talking about this leviathan, commonly referred to as a large sea monster. Personally, I struggle with this. Was it actually a sea monster like a dinosaur? Or is it symbolism for Satan, or a metaphor for a powerful enemy? The word also appears in the books of Psalms, Isaiah, and Amos, but they also aren't helpful. In closing, I'd like to share some words written by Charles Swindoll on the topic of attitude. Charles writes, "The longer I live, the more I realize the impact of attitude on life. Attitude to me is more important than facts. It is more important than failures, than success, than what other people think or say or do. It is more important than appearance, giftedness, or skill. It will make or break a company, a church, a home. The remarkable thing is this: we have a choice every day regarding the attitude we will embrace that day. We cannot change our past. We cannot change the fact that people will act in a certain way. We cannot change the inevitable. The only thing we can do is play on the one string we have, and that is our attitude. I am convinced that life is 10% what happens to me and 90% how I react to it. And so it is with you. We are in charge of our attitudes." Mark Twain said, "Goodness is the language which the deaf can hear and the blind can see." I'll repeat that. Goodness is the language which the deaf can hear and the blind can see. Pastor Ron always ends with a joke, so I'll try one as well. It's election time in BC and also in the United States. So I have a story about a politician trying to put his best foot forward. The story is about Senator Huey Long, who was trying to get re-elected to the Senate. He was campaigning in southern Louisiana, where he was taken aside by a local politician and reminded that he would be talking to a lot of Catholic voters. Thus, throughout the day, Huey told his audiences how, as a boy, he would get up at 6 o'clock on Sunday morning, hitch the family horse to a buggy, and take his Catholic grandparents to Mass. After he brought them back home, he would turn around and take his Baptist grandparents to church. At the end of the day, the local politician complimented Huey and expressed surprise at learning he had Catholic grandparents. To which Huey replied, "Don't be a fool. We didn't even have a horse." Have a blessed day. God bless all of you.